Much. Welcome back. Listen, I got a fun one for you. We all know you're half limey. Joe's going to be going to your homeland this season for
Nice.
about, a week? I would love to hear some of your suggestions.
Yeah, I arrive on Boxing Day.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, Boxing Day. Well, God blimey, Gov. Yeah, you know what? It's a great time to be there. In fact, I leave this afternoon for London for some meetings and for some holiday cheer and festivities. It's a great time. It's like going to New York City in Christmas time, although it doesn't smell quite as strongly of weed in London.
That's true.
And yeah, you have, but it's. So it's a great town. You know what I'll do is I'll send you a list of potential restaurants that you could check out and some bars.
That's awesome.
Yes, please.
So yeah, it's a great town.
I'd love
I'm
that.
very jealous. I also need to look up Mallard Fillmore when I get home. He would always get into trouble.
I can actually see him in my mind. I know exactly.
Oh yeah, he was one of those. He was one of those afterthoughts. Like if every other comic was sort of like, meh, all right, I'll check out what Mallard's doing. But he was not in the upper echelon of comic greats. I will say that.
No, he was not up there with like Nancy and Sluggo. No, absolutely not.
We're learning more and more for where he gets his nicknames for his kids. Well, you had a couple good ones that. Would be topical for the solution.
Just because everyone likes to make their opinions known on social media, and if you don't have one, your silence is death. The CIA recently had to remind people of guidelines after a senior official shared a pro-Palestine post.
Yeah.
The move came amid reported dissatisfaction among some U.S. government workers with President Joe Biden's strong support for Israel in the wake of the October 7 Hamas assault on southern Israel that killed many people, mostly civilians, 240 kidnapped to Gaza. The agency's associate deputy director for analysis had posted a picture of a man waving a Palestinian flag. According to the FT, I don't know what that stands for.
Financial Times.
Great. Thank you.
It's a great outlet. It's a great news source. If anybody's looking for additional reading material, the Financial Times is a great newspaper.
I always like suggestions.
Her name is Amy McFadden. Apparently, at first, they were not identifying her because of concern about her safety, but now I guess they're less concerned.
Now they don't care.
She's one of the most senior officials within the CIA and was once responsible for overseeing the president's daily brief, not the incredible podcast that we all know and love, but the actual brief, which is a summary of classified intelligence. Now, CIA officers may have personal views, but this does not lessen their or CIA's commitment to unbiased analysis. The official also noted that she has an extensive background in all aspects of the Middle East, and her post was not intended to express a position on the conflict. In the past, she's also posted messages condemning anti-Semitism, a source also added. So, Baker, why does anyone in the CIA have a social media account?
That's a good question.
Like, if it's that tricky to maneuver, why bother at all?
Yeah, it's a new day. Look, you're right. This is what happens when you don't enforce enough discipline, or when you hire people for things other than the core functions of the agency. I'm not saying she was hired for any reason. I'm just saying we seem to have drifted away from what the responsibilities are if you're an agency officer. And the first one is to keep your yap shut, right? You don't have a political opinion as far as the public's concerned, or anybody's concerned, when you're working for the agency. If you're in the intel community, sure, you can sit at home and talk politics and you can go vote, but shut your trap as far as
so hard?
Public-facing opinions. It's just stupid, and it worries me because it's a stupid thing to do. And then you think, well, how capable are the people that are in the senior leadership positions at any government organization? You shouldn't have to remind people about how moronic that sort of behavior is.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that you post a picture of some dude waving a Palestinian flag, and by implication, whether you intend to or not, by implication, it's an anti-Semitic message, given that the goal of Hamas and many Gaza residents who support Hamas, many don't, is the elimination of Israel. You can't couch it any other way, right? You can't go out there and say from the river to the sea and then go, well, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm just agreeing with people who want to destroy and kill Jews. I saw that. I was disappointed in it. But it takes all types. I think the problem is if you work in operations, I don't want to sound elitist because there's always sort of this us versus them when you talk about operations people and then analytical people or people working in other sections of the agency, and they're all fantastic. They're all doing a very difficult job and a very important job. But what I mean is I think sometimes it's a different understanding if you're in operations, right? You get it because you're slapped in the face with the need to be covert and discreet all the time, right? So that's what I'm saying. But it was a stupid move. I'm sure she regrets it. Maybe.
Well, on today's PBD. Oh, by the way, I have a
man. You just can't get that fucking title right.
Okay, well, before you yell at me, I'm very bad with abbreviations. That's not an acronym because it doesn't make a word, people. I'm very bad with abbreviations. It's just a lot of letters. But I have a pitch for you for a segment.
Okay.
PDB's WWPBD, meaning what would President Baker do? So you have a situation and you're like, if I were president, here's how I would handle it. And mostly, obviously, it would usually involve something covert, I suppose, staying within your wheelhouse a little bit. It's not wordy because it's kind of, there's a sonorous thing about all of these, like, you're playing off of PDB and it's a lot of letters, but it's a fun, you're having fun with it.
I like it. I mean, I can see it. That's very creative. I can see that being like an end of week segment where people could write in and say, and answer and ask the question, what would President Baker do?
Yes.
And I could field a couple of those because we get a lot of great comments and suggestions and ideas and things.
You're like number 2 on Spotify or something, right?
America's fastest growing podcast.
Yeah, I mean it's insane. It's great. But anyway, on today's episode, which didn't have my award-winning new segment, you spoke of how apparently God is a Ukrainian. I'm kidding, of course. There's no God, but there was this horrible. There's this horrible storm of the century in the Black Sea. All of these Russian barricades swept like the wrath of God, thereby enabling perhaps some Ukrainian drones to better get in there and cause some damage. Have we heard about any instance where that is already starting to happen?
Well, first of all, for those who haven't listened to the episode, I didn't actually suggest that God was involved in the storm.
He did, and then he started mumbling in tongues.
The area. But I'm sure in some way God was responsible in some way. I don't know that he woke up and said, I'm going to smote some Russian dolphins who are protecting the harbor there in Crimea for Sevastopol. But because I don't think God would get in the business of smoting dolphins because you don't know
him.
Come on. Yeah.
Dolphins are assholes. We have a segment
that's what I
called
was going to ask. Is it dolphins or is it porpoises that are considered to be like the assholes of the ocean?
Dolphins are porpoises.
Oh, God. Baker, you opened up a can of worms.
Yes.
I don't know if they're the same thing. It's like saying crocodiles and alligators are the same thing. I don't think that's right.
I think you're not right. Well, guys, if only we had like a little Google machine that could prove to see who's. I don't know.
Something you could type in your question and the answer would come up.
Yeah, it's ruined any bartender's career for trying to end a conversation. So do we know? Have they taken advantage of this yet, or is it already something that the Russians already put up some sort of defense for this?
Well, look, it's Crimea. Sevastopol is a hardened facility or a site anyway because it's the Black Sea port for the Russian fleet. So there's a lot of layers of security there, and the Ukrainians have been, I'm sure, recceing or reconning all of those, and they've made attempts in the past, and they have been very successful and forced the Russian Navy to relocate some of their vessels because of the potential for attack. So but the storm is interesting in the sense that it's probably not something that Putin was imagining would happen. Like he's had,
great. I love it.
Thank goodness he's had a run of bad luck, right? Ever since he started this misguided, unfortunate adventure of his. So anything that degrades Putin's ability to continue this fight, I think, is a good thing because, frankly, we're going into the wintertime. We're in sort of a stalemate. Nobody really wants to say it, but they're pretty much in a stalemate. It's a little bit reminiscent of World War I, where they were in the trenches and nobody was, advancing beyond a couple of feet of ground. And so it's been slow, and it's going to get slower as the winter sets in. Tough to resupply troops, tough to redeploy and move troops. So both sides will be digging in. The Ukrainians, I suspect, will spend their time trying to target Russian supply lines and command centers, and they're getting better at that. But the problem is the Russian military's probably got like a 3-to-1 personnel advantage, meaning, they can throw 3 poorly trained soldiers at the effort for every 1 Ukrainian. And so that is a sizable advantage. They've also gotten into bed with Iran, and they seem to be increasing that cooperation because Russia needs what Iran can sell them, drones and munitions, just like they need that from North Korea. They have very few people they can turn to. So this is going to be a very difficult time. And I guess my point is, all this babbling on that I'm doing, I wanted to bring it back to the U.S. and say, meanwhile, Congress is kind of dithering about, well, do we keep funding them or not? And that's fine. You should have those questions, and you should demand transparency from, a Ukrainian government that legitimately had corruption issues in the past.
Sure.
And so you should demand transparency, but they also need to be pragmatic. If they decide not to continue funding it at a reasonable level, then they have to understand that the consequence of that is, at best, a stalemate, and likely the tide will turn in Russia's favor at a certain point. And that's what Putin's counting on. He's counting on the U.S. and our allies to get bored or frustrated and focus elsewhere.
Baker, can you tell me a little bit about a headline I read in regards to foreigners who enter Russia needing to sign loyalty documents?
Oh, God.
What exactly does that mean?
Amazing.
Well, loyalty means that, it's a noun at times.
And that was her question.
Never experienced that. Yeah.
Yeah, we could change our PDB segment to Ask Mr. Literal. So I could just always give the wrong answer because I misinterpret literally what's being asked.
I like it. It's evolving.
To answer your question, Joe, I forgot. What was your question again?
Sorry. The loyalty thing?
What is the point of getting foreigners to sign loyalty paperwork? What would that entail or mean exactly?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. It's wacky at best. So, and I think it has, I don't know. It's a good question.
I'll tell you what.
I'm going to investigate that. I'm going to do that on the PDB.
I'm more interested in the people that are leaving that broken, awful, withered husk of a country, because I had read recently that almost 1 million higher ups as far as brain drain is concerned, people at the upper ends of businesses in the tech world, over 1 million of them have already left Russia. This place is going from bad to worse in whatever way this thing ends.
Yeah. All under Putin's tutelage. Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a brain drain. It's revenues have been dropping. It's awful what he's done.
Yeah.
And the people continue, not necessarily to support him, but put up with it, right? And, we've talked about this before. The Russian population's ability to suffer is pretty remarkable and deal with it by a remarkably entertaining, dry sense of humor. But, it is remarkable that Putin's been able to maintain control this long. So, maybe, and there's always been this talk and, an attempt to understand from an intel perspective just how much of a grasp does he have. It's the same with Xi in China. There are signs that while we've imagined for some time that he's got an iron-like grip on things, that there's a significant sense of dissatisfaction, particularly around the economy in China. So, who knows? It'd be a much different place if Xi and Putin were not in charge of their regimes, and they would use their resources and money and authority for good.
Well, I always quote
for all.
I always quote you. Not that I talk with many people where these type of topics come up, but I always quote you with like the one thing that a dictator is supposed to offer and provide is security. And when that goes out the window, things can change real quick. And you just hope that they.
And there's no quicker way to lose grasp of security than to have your people upset with the economic situation
Yes.
that they're, living in. So that could be a real problem. But I'm gonna dig into that whole loyalty paperwork question.
Cool. Thanks.
Just Google, just email her the actual definition. Just cut and paste from Webster's. Well, listen, buddy, thank you so much. Any other plugs, promotions? They're always so long. I'm finally listening to your Rogan episode. That's been very fun. You guys have quite the rapport.
That was good. It's always great to sit down with him. He's so damn entertaining and interesting. So it's a lot of fun. Just a great guy. I can't, again, I always say the same thing, which is, can't say enough good things about him. But he's just a solid cat, right?
I noticed you're even promoting some of his favorite cigars on your ads.
Well, yes. I mean, I was lucky enough to get Foundation Cigars to sponsor the PDB as well, and so they sent a crate of outstanding cigars that I've been smoking like a fiend.
What am I doing wrong? Why is no one
just to make my way through them? I've got the boys smoking too now. So, yeah.
That is great, though. My dad had given up cigars a long time ago, but now he's at that age where he's like, fuck it. And smoking a cigar with your dad, it's a fun time.
It's a great thing. You sit outside and you have a cigar and a nice beverage, and you just I don't know, it just slows things down.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't plow your way through a cigar in record time, right? It makes you kind of slow down a little bit.
Sure.
And that luckily generates conversation, and so it's fun. It's, I sound like Wilford Brimley.
I've always, I know, but I'll tell you what, the other thing too is for some reason I've always thought that a girl, maybe there's some obvious connotations, but a girl smoking a cigar I always thought was really hot. Having said that, can you imagine how ridiculous Joanne would look if she was smoking a cigar? Get the ash all, she'd burn herself.
What's the connotation you're referring to?
Nothing. I just think, I enjoy a fine tobacco product. That's all I'm talking about. Get your fucking mind out. All Joe's thinking about is that they look like poop. So she likes that. She's a fakeophile.
Someone got a screenshot of Joe's face when you said that.
I speak nothing but the truth. Thanks so much, buddy.
Thanks, Baker.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Talk to you next